So I just wanted to show you the top pelvic floor exercises for prolapse, but in standing position, because so many of my ladies are like, listen, I'm standing all day long. It's later in the day. I feel heaviness. I feel pressure, but I still have to cook dinner, pick my kids up after school, etc. And so it's sort of crazy how everybody's looking for things that they can do quick and easy where they don't have to lay down. And so one of the things that I love, whether you're out with your kids somewhere or whether you're in your kitchen and you're kind of exhausted and you feel that heaviness and pressure and you feel like the organs are descending, a lot of you have done great in the beginning of the day, but the end of the day is just harder for you. Hi, if you're here right now, you most likely have a pelvic floor disorder and you're looking for help to figure out what you need to do in order to take care of this problem. That's why we developed Pelvic Floor Pro. Please take the quiz, and in the quiz, it will help you know which exercise plan is for you. These exercise plans have been developed specifically with your symptomology in mind. Follow the link below and get your free trial started today. Your pelvic health is important to us. So one of the things you can do in your kitchen, or like if you're waiting by your car for your kiddos to get done soccer, is that you can lean forward on, like the hood of your car, or, in your kitchen on the counter. And then in that lean forward position, you can give a little bit of a stretch or elongation to your hamstrings, because the hamstrings in your hip adductors being tight can kind of pull down at the floor. So you're giving them this little bit of elongation here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to do a little bit of a posterior tilt. Remember how we rock our pelvis backwards and forwards in the posterior rock, right? We can lift the organs up and kind of get them back in their right position to take their load off, the pressure into the floor. So you put some of these bigger muscles on stretch. So again, hamstrings, adductors, a little bit of elongation. You can lean forward, you kind of relax, and then you're going to posteriorly tilt your pelvis. So that pelvis is going to flatten out. So that sacrum and, that tail, they kind of tuck under. As you tuck under, you're pulling all of those organs up and in. So you're using these deep abdominal muscles and you're just rocking this pelvis back, and it's a nice little hold. It will take the pressure and that, that pulling down off of the floor. And it's also stretching all these muscles really nice. So I'll have people do, maybe 5 or 10, nice 5-count hold. And even when you anteriorly tilt out of the motion, you still have a little bit of tone in the deep muscles, right? And then you're going to pull and posterior tilt. Posterior tilt is a great way to help relieve that down pressure. And sometimes in the down pressure, you'll even feel, a thickness sometimes and heaviness in the adductor area. It's sort of the overflow of the lymph system. And if you've been standing all day long like that, or running around as so many of you are, it's just a great way to kind of elongate tissue that maybe is too tight, maybe pulling down at all the organs as well. And then you're going to do that nice posterior tilt. And so many people just feel a lot of relief afterwards. The other thing in standing that works really nice is to actually get your hands on your ribs. Remember, your diaphragm helps move the floor up and down. So when you and I inhale and exhale, these ribs should move a good 2 to 3 inches. So you can practice by putting your hands. That just gives a little proprioceptive awareness to the brain. You breathe all the way in, the ribs expand. And then as you exhale, the floor responds to that. So as you breathe in, the diaphragm drops down, the floor drops down. But as soon as you exhale, guess what? The floor should rhythmically follow the diaphragm up. So we use the diaphragm a lot to help lift the floor. So deep breathing patterns where the ribs have to expand a lot helps that diaphragm pull the floor up. There's a central tendon that goes between that diaphragm. It's a fascial line to the floor, and that fascial line helps to pop the floor up. So if your ribs aren't moving 2 to 3 inches, then get them more expansion. Sometimes I'll have people elongate, open all that up, do some nice trunk rotation to open up the ribs, take some breaths into there, because I need those ribs to move to help the floor to move. If the ribs aren't moving, the floor's not moving. So the other thing that works great, and again, it's using the diaphragm to help the floor lift these organs up, is I can put my arms on the wall. So if in my kitchen, I might turn to my refrigerator, put my arms up. The moment I put my arms up on the wall, what happens is that I automatically, with my diaphragm, I'm encouraging the lift of the floor to come up because my diaphragm is elevated more, and then I can use my breath here as well. But my diaphragm is elevated more, and that helps the floor lift. The higher I go with my arms, you can imagine, then the more the diaphragm is going to do that lift. It's also going to help the floor lift up. So utilizing your arms on the wall is a great tool. Sometimes we'll even do our side bending to open this up, and if we're stiff in this area, and I'll also do a nice rotational pattern here to open up those ribs, and I can take my nice deep breaths there. One of our exercises then is going to be arms to wall. We're going to get in a little bit of a low trunk rotation. I'm going to do a little contraction of the floor, really light anal sphincter contraction, urethral sphincter contraction, and I'm just going to do some rotations. So I'm going to loosen up a lot of this tissue that stays too tight, like in my hips and my low back. I'm using my obliques and my deep transverse abdominis to do this particular motion, and I can do them each side, and it helps to release some of the tension there, and then I can go back with my hands on my wall and do some posterior tilting here as well. My next exercise is going to be a little bit of a march pattern. I'm going to grab these deep abdominal muscles, tell them, come on up and in, right? They're going to help that pelvic organ prolapse that's trying to descend. It's going to help lift them as I pull them up and in. Again, I'm not in a full posterior tilt. I'm just in a light tilt. I'm going to pull that in, and now I can do a little march, and I can do rear kick. March, rear kick. As I do that motion, I'm telling all the organs and anything that feels like it's dropping low to lift and hold as I do my motion. It loosens up the hip, so if the hip has tension on it that's pulling at the organs, it will release that tension. In that same position, I can then pull belly muscles in again, and then I can do a nice crossover stretch and out. So I cross over in front and out. I can cross over to the rear and out. Why am I doing that? Because I'm encouraging the hip abductors to actually fire up, but I'm also elongating these crazy adductors, which oftentimes gets a lot of tension to the pelvic floor, pulling down on the organs. So you're releasing all of that. And then our last one in this position, again, my arms are on my wall. I can actually get in a nice little squat position, and I can do a nice little tap to loosen up all my hips. I'm telling my pelvic floor to contract while I'm here. And if I feel like, oh, I feel heavy, I might do some posterior tilts first, and then I go just to get a little bit of range in my hips. Remember, if my hips and my pelvis are not moving well, along with my diaphragm, there's no way that I can decrease organ descent. So these are just a few in standing, just to give you some ideas of what you can do when you're out and about in the world and on the go. Arms on the wall automatically really helps. Higher arms that go. Sometimes I'm here, I can do my heel raises, and I'm just telling that floor, I can posterior tilt, hey, I need you to lift everything up and give everybody a break.